Exposure. Setting the correct exposure on your camera, not that kind of exposure, is important. This is HDSLR 101.
This episode is made possible by CPM Film Tools, your lightweight solution for caging the beast. LCD Viewfinder, the essential accessory for DSLR video. Lightcraft Workshop, the perfect tools to create the perfect image. Manhattan LCD, the affordable solution for high-definition monitoring. GZCam.com, your source for gear reviews and do-it-yourself video and photography projects. Linco Lighting, professional lighting for photo and video.
Hi, this is Tony Reale from NextWaveDV.com. Today we're going to be talking about setting the correct exposure on your camera. Getting the correct exposure is vital to getting good video. If you overexpose, you clip out your whites, you blow out your whites, and you'll not be able to get the detail back. Again, if you clip out your blacks, if you underexpose, you might not be able to get the detail back from that. So having the correct exposure is very vital. Skin tones are supposed to have, if you go by technical side, 70 IRE of exposure. And this is something that's kind of standard and we get used to seeing it, but in different settings you might have a lower light situation, you might have a brighter light situation. You want to make sure that you're getting the correct exposure. And so we're going to show you a couple techniques to be able to not only know if you're getting the correct exposure, but also being able to set it on your camera. Now, Canon HDSLRs have a great feature that can actually help you see where your exposure is at. If you look down here, you're going to see an exposure chart that shows a +3 and -3 rating. If you half press the shutter, you'll see a little arrow pop up and it'll indicate where your current exposure is at. Right here we can see that it's overexposed, so if we change our ISO, say down to 640, press that again, we have perfect exposure. Now if we were to underexpose and drop it down to 200, press it again, you can see it's -2, we're down 2 stops of exposure. So we were to come up back to 640, and now it's right in the middle, we have proper exposure for that shot. As we talked about in previous episodes, setting your exposure is controlled by 3 main factors: your shutter speed, your ISO, and your f-stop. Now, like we talked about before, you want to make sure that your shutter speed is not exceeding the rule of 180. So if you're shooting at 30 frames per second, you want to have your shutter speed at around 1/60th of a second. Now, this can change if you're trying to change an artistic style, but overall, for normal film look, you want to have your shutter speed at that 180 rule. Your ISO, depending on the camera that you're shooting at, most of like the 5D, the 7D shouldn't exceed ISO 1600 because you might end up getting grain in your shot. Some of the higher end, the 1D Mark IV, the Nikon D3S, these actually have a higher ISO threshold, and so you can shoot at higher ISOs. If you do want to shoot at a higher ISO on your 7D or your 5D, it is optional, but you might start noticing grain in the shot. So you have to outweigh, is that grain going to affect the aesthetic? Do I like it? Is it going to ruin the shot? And then finally, your f-stop, as we talked about before, by stopping down your camera, you're going to be controlling the light that's coming into the camera, but you're also dramatically going to change the depth of field in the shot. And when you stop down, you're basically allowing less light to come into the camera, which means that your depth of field is wider. When you stop up and you're allowing more light to come into the camera, your depth of field is narrower. And while this can be used to adjust your exposure, it can also dramatically affect the aesthetic of the film. So make sure that you're using your f-stop not only for exposure, but also for setting the look of your film also. All right, let's say you're outside, you want to be shooting at f1.4, and it's a bright sunshiny day. You can't exceed your 60th of a second shutter speed because you're shooting at 30 frames per second like we talked about. Your ISO is all the way down as low as it can be, but you're still overexposing dramatically. That's when you can use ND filters. These are commonly found in professional grade video cameras. These aren't in DSLRs by nature, so you have to put an ND filter in front of your lens. One great thing to purchase is a fader ND filter. This is from Lightcraft Workshop. This is really, really nice. What you can do is it varies from 2 to 8 stops of light ND filtering, and basically it's just a gray filter that goes over the top of your camera. over the top of your camera lens and reduces the light that's coming in. It doesn't change the color or anything else, it just reduces the light coming into your camera so you can still open up your shots and be able to shoot outside at a lower f-stop number. Threaded ND filters that attach to the front of the lens are great, but they can be inconvenient if you're constantly swapping lenses in a shoot. That's where you might want to look at a matte box. A matte box has many factors. It can control the light that's coming in by using French flags, and these can go at multiple angles to block the light. You can have additional ones that come from the side, and if you have the bright sunlight or a bright light coming in from the side, instead of glaring off of the lens, this would block it. And then they have small controls that can also incrementally change that light that's coming in. But they also are able to hold filters. Now filters can attach into here, depending on the size of your matte box. It can take 4x4 or 4x5.6 inch filter frames, and those would just attach in here, slide in, and allow you to change the look. You can use ND filters, you can use gradiated filters, there's tons of filters that they make. Now it is important to get good filters though. You want to get good glass, and usually good glass costs several $100s. So the fader ND filter that I showed you is about $100 depending on the size of your lens, versus a matte lens or a matte filter like this, which would be a 4x4, that could cost you $200 to $300 for one piece of glass. So you want to weigh the pros and cons. This is a lot more convenient for switching out lenses, but it will cost you a little bit more. Well, we hope that helps you figure out how to correctly expose your camera and using different ways to get the correct exposure and the correct look that you're looking for. Be sure to check out our other episodes of HDSLR 101. We'll have another episode in 2 weeks. But in the meantime, if you want to purchase the entire series right now, you can jump onto our website, nextwavedv.com, and you can download it for only $20. This also helps support some of our other free content out there, such as our Next Wave TV series, our Cine Tips, and lots of other stuff that you can find on YouTube. Be sure to check out our website, subscribe, and check out our future videos down the road. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.